Right. Hey, everyone, I'm Klloo. So, along with the hefty new tap and untap mechanic in high seas, we also got quite the substantial rule update, right? So, there's a few nice, easy stuff. So, for instance, basic rarity, right, is replacing tokens. That is basically to avoid confusion around token typing. So, you have cards that are token type and token rarity. So, now they will be basic rarity, most likely, and then token type, right? So, that's mainly to avoid confusion. The other one is card choosing limited to the arena/stack rather than any face-up card available, right? So pinch zone, graveyard, I guess technically a face-up arsenal. So for instance, the example is something like Oasis Respite that allows you to blanket select something. So that could be used to, I don't know, potentially predict what your opponent is going to come at you with to prevent the damage through. So either way, it's not a big change, right? It should just help with clarity, but wouldn't really affect anything meta relevant, right? But when it comes to the big ones, we have two. So the first one is revolving around Spectra. So previously, Spectra acted as this. This can be attacked. When this becomes the target of an attack, destroy this and close the combat chain. This meant that, for instance, if you were to swing into Arclight Sentinel with, say, Teleshare, it would not resolve and the combat chain would be closed. The new update means that this can be attacked, but when this becomes the target of an attack, you just destroy the attack, right? You don't close the combat chain. So now, Talishare swings into Arclight Sentinel, but the combat chain remains open for that window of priority. So there's a few different cases where this is obviously a little bit more relevant and flexible, and also opens up design possibilities for LSS. So we did get a new card in High Seas Bar Barrage. As an additional cost to play this, you may pay 3 if you do this attack's additional target. What this means is, again, with Arclight Sentinel, Bar Barrage has to target Arclight Sentinel first. Spectra resolves, Arclight Sentinel is destroyed, Bar Barrage is destroyed. But if you paid the 3 to attack an additional target, that attack still continues because technically on the chain, it's a copy of the attack you played, right? It's an object that you've created. So the second variant of Bar Barrage now continues and goes towards another ally or most likely Prism, right? And can then resolve. This means that if you use it in conjunction with a card like Flying High, that gives your next attack this turn go again, while the first copy of Bar Barrage is destroyed, targeting Arclight, Sentinel, and Spectre, and therefore does not resolve, meaning you don't get that go again proc. If you have another available target, i.e. the hero, then Bar Barrage can still resolve, giving you that go again and giving you that action point to continue with your turn. Now, the other scenario is something like Brutes with Scab Skin Leathers, where you're able to generate more action points for yourself going into the attack. So for instance, if we again attack Arclight Sentinel, the attack is destroyed, but the combat chain remains open, which is a bit more relevant for continuing to attack, rather than the combat chain closing, but you still being able to declare more attacks because you still have excess action points to float, right? So that is, again, quite the big change to Spectre and how it works, and should create a little bit more of a dynamic situation, as well as, again, open up the possibilities for LSS to craft interactions at this level of play. Now, the other big one is around attack reaction. So, previously, you had to be the attacking player during the reaction step to play/activate attack reaction cards/abilities. So, for instance, Pummel or Razor Reflex, they allow you to target a weapon attack or an attack action card. So both of these situations, right, you declaring an attack with a weapon or playing an attack action card, you are essentially attacking on behalf of your hero or yourself, right, so the player. But what it now acts as is you may play or activate attack reactions despite not being the attacking hero, meaning you can play attack reactions onto allies, right, and their attack window. So obviously, Pummel, Razor Reflex, again, target either a weapon or an attack action card, so they don't functionally work with allies. So instead, what we're looking for is anything that specifically targets an ally or just a blanket attack, or essentially doesn't have a designated target. So the big new one for High Seas is the Breakwater Undertow, so attack reaction, destroy this, target pirate, ally attack, gets go again. When the combat chain closes, destroy the ally. Whether or not this was, say, a misprint, and maybe was meant to be an instant, for instance, either way, this basically brought about this change for our allies, and it does, again, open up some dynamic possibilities as well as card design for LSS. So in the case of something like Exposed, again, this has that target attack gets +1 and therefore can be used in conjunction with an ally attack. So for the generic slot, there's only a handful of cards, right? So again, Exposed, Nip of the Heels, target attack with 3 or less base power gets +1. Fleetfoot Sandals, destroy this. Target attack with 1 or less base power gains go again, or Vambraces of Determination. Once per turn attack reaction, pay 1. The next prevention effect that prevents damage this turn prevents 1 less of that damage. So again, these are the different cases where we have an attack designated as the target, or we have an open-ended effect that can now be played at that reaction step on an ally, which might make it a little bit more usable, right? Because since you can in a sense, set up some more dynamic results, right? You swing with an ally, they haven't declared a prevention effect yet, but there's something like Enigma where they can create the spectral shields, so you can still use your Van Braces, although there are plenty of better arm slot, unfortunately. Now, aside from the generics, there aren't currently any other Necromancer or even Pirate attack reactions, so there's nothing else really relevant to your ally. So again, it's that big question of whether or not Breakwater Undertows were, again, meant to be printed as an instant. But either way, they brought about this change, and I do personally really like this change and what it could mean for future design. So next, the big one is Illusionist, right? Light Illusionist and your Angel allies. So nice big card for you to now utilize is Luminar Lance, right? As an additional cost to play this, banish up to 3 cards from your hero soul. Choose that many modes. So you get either a +2, when this hits, draw a card, or when this hits, it gains go again, right? So if you banish 3 cards, you can pick all 3, and that is quite the powerful card that could allow you to go 1 attack wider, right? As Prism, or get that draw, which is definitely really, really solid. So yeah, this is definitely a nice card to now be open. Now, when it comes to Mystic, your auras are weapons, so technically this change wasn't relevant. So for instance, Wide Blue Yonder was always usable with your ward tokens, right? And then for Draconic, there currently isn't anything that would be relevant, as the majority of new stuff is either locked behind Dagger, right? Or specifically Draconic Warrior. So that then brings us to Actual Warrior, or more specifically, Kasai Warrior, right? So we have Raven Army, which allows us to create our Centauri Sellsword allies. So again, there's not too many, but there is still some fun interaction. So currently, Agile Engagement, Vigorous Engagement, Fatal Engagement, just nice simple buffs. On Agile or Vigorous, if the ally is being defended by an attack action card, you get to create a token, and Fatal can only be played if an attack action card is defending against your ally. But I think just having a extra target for these cards is still a decent decision point. Then we have Cut the Deck, target warrior attack, it gets +3. If it's defended by an attack action card, draw a card, then put a card from your hand or arsenal on the bottom of your deck. So again, applicable to your Centauri Sellsword, which I think could trip up a few people, right, for a little while here, given that this is a new change, so they might be a bit more blatant in tossing out X cards, not thinking about reprise or this type of effect on the warrior reactions when it's not against a weapon. And then Shift the Tide of Battle is a curious one. Target warrior attack with power greater than its base gets go again. Next time an opposing hero is dealt damage this turn, create an agility token. So while Sellswords already have the go again and don't need the proc, one thought here could be that Sellswords are the lower priority for your opponent to block, generally speaking, because there was no detriment to them other than just the damage, right? Whereas with weapons, right, there's more attack reactions, more devastating payoffs. So potentially saving Shift the Tide of Battle for your Sellswords if you don't need the go again proc would be a cleaner way to try and get an agility, right? A little bait and switch, especially in a scenario where you swung with the weapon first and your opponent has blocked it out. But in that same sense, Shift the Tide of Battle does floats as an effect, right? So it's just whether or not you're giving them that knowledge of this effect is in play when you go to swing with your Sellsword. So again, the main thing to me is just the future design space for both Spectra, the decision point with the combat chain staying open, and again, attack reactions with allies going forward. The other allies of note currently are our Shadow minions, right? So Soul Harrower, Soul Reaper, and Soul Harvester, but there aren't currently any Brute, Runeblade, or Shadow attack reaction cards. And of course, Sticky Fingers for Scurv as our pirate-ish offhand ally, right? Again, there are no current attack reactions for Pirate. All we're pulling from is the generic barrel, but that is still kind of an interesting thought with our Soul Harrower, since it does have a on-hit effect, potentially. But again, they're still pretty niche. So overall, there we go. That's the rule changes. What do you think, right? Are you excited for the possibilities, right? I always love, again, fringe stuff that I can just try and make something really gimmicky out of, and this is definitely up that alley, right? Literally. No pun intended. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Yeah.